Hello. Um, I don't really know what this is or what I'm doing, but it's about 20 to 1 in the morning, and I have just finished watching HiTop Films. It's analysis videos on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. Great videos. Highly recommended. If I end up uploading this, they'll be in the description, probably. I don't really know what this is or what I'm doing, but I'm going to talk for a bit, probably about Spider-Man. Because those films, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, are very important to some people, as pointed out in the video. And from what I can tell, are HiTop Films' favourite Spider-Man films. Possibly favourite films of all time. Hell, Spider-Man 2 is definitely. And it's clear from the videos how much work and effort has gone into these. And you can see exactly how the characters act and respond to the events that happen and why they happen the way they do. And even though some of the things might seem like problems in the film on a first or second watch, hell, maybe a third, any amount of times you watch it, because I've never noticed these things. Though I haven't seen these films for a long time. I've currently seen the first and second one, and we're probably going to watch the third one soon. I don't quite know when. But yeah. But they aren't, to me, these aren't the best films I've seen. These aren't amazing, they aren't incredible, and I don't know why. Right, because I am watching these videos, and these videos, I don't want to say these videos are more entertaining than the films. Because I don't want to say that, but I'm more engrossed, I'm impacted more emotionally by the videos than I was the films that I've seen. And maybe that's because I'm not paying as much attention to the films or something, but the film should hold my attention, so and I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about those films that make me not like them as much as other people. Because people really love those films. And it's interesting, because, like, I don't know. I don't know what makes me not like those films as much. And I think if I want to blame anything, it's the acting. And just something about the way the characters act in those films seems stilted to me. You don't have to watch the films. I'm not gonna do any editing with this. This is literally just me talking to a mic. Again, I don't even know if I'm gonna upload this anywhere. So yeah. But yeah. But they are good films, and they're worth watching, totally. Like, the third video I've just watched explains how Spider-Man 3 is still a good film. Hell, he even calls it a great film. And if you've seen Spider-Man 3, it's flawed, to say the least. And you probably know this, because the internet will tell you, if nothing else, that movie is flawed. For reasonable reasons. If you look into the production of it, the production side of it, the behind-the-scenes stuff, it's clear that there are certain parts of the movie they wanted to put more time in and couldn't, and Venom was never supposed to be in that movie. Right? That just wasn't supposed to happen, and it's clearly one of the focuses of the film, so why does it happen? And that's because of the producers. Probably because of Avi Arad, who has this. When it comes to he's a Sony producer, and when it comes to Spider-Man films, he has a weird obsession with Venom. Because people like Venom, and Venom sells toys, which gets Sony money. Which, of course, is the case. I remember watching a video by someone about Avi Arad. I can't remember who. It was probably HiTop Films as well. If not, maybe it was Full Fat Videos or Captain Midnight. I can't remember. Possibly Nando V Movies? I don't know. I'm just saying names. These people are all good. I suggest you check them out. And yeah. Point is, Avi Arad, not a great guy. You should let filmmakers make the damn films that they want. Because if you let filmmakers make their film, you will create a better film, and a better film will get you more money. I don't know why people don't understand this, but whatever, it's fine. There are worse things going on right now. The world's going to shit, and I'm talking about movies. I don't know what I'm doing. I wanted to this will just be out raw. Christ, anyway, point is, the Sam Raimi trilogy of Spider-Man films aren't my favourite films. They're not close, they're not up there, like at all. Like, if I think of my favourite films, they don't come up. Because to me, there are better Spider-Man films, at the very least, and there are plenty of other films which I prefer to those films. Non-Marvel stuff includes basically anything Edgar Wright has made. So the Cornetto trilogy, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Baby Driver. Baby Driver is my favourite film. Hacksaw Ridge is amazing. It has bloody Andrew Garfield as the main character, who of course is the character in Spider-Man. And let me say, he does a much better job in Hacksaw Ridge than in that Spider-Man film. But I don't. It's not that. Do not blame Andrew Garfield for the Amazing Spider-Man films. Those were not his fault. I don't think anyone is blaming him. I thought I'd point it out. And actually, he does a good job with what he's given, from what I've heard. Because again, HiTop Films has analysed that film as well quite a bit. Because he loves Spider-Man. And I love Spider-Man too. But Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man isn't my Spider-Man. Because Tom Holland's Spider-Man is my Spider-Man. The MCU is my version of Marvel. The MCU is my exposure to Marvel as a whole. Realistically. I have only seen a couple of the X-Men films and Deadpool, and I haven't really read any of the comics. I don't read, as any of my friends will tell you. And it's not that I don't want to read the comics, but it's that I want to read them from the start. And that's not really something I can do. I have no way to get copies of those comics easily. And obviously, there's a lot to catch up on if I was to read literally everything since Spider-Man began. I don't know when Spider-Man was first Spider-Man comic was. So 1970s or something? Spider-Man comic first. 60. Amazing Fantasy number 15, August 1962. Right? There's no way I can read every single Spider-Man comic since 1962. That's, quick math, 60 years. That's 60 years of Spider-Man. Damn, it's been around for 60 years. That's incredible. The only other exposure I would have to Marvel would be the Spider-Man PS4 game, which is basically the only game I've played on PS4. I have a limited edition Spider-Man PS4. And it came with that game, and I played it all the way through, start to finish, 100% completion on the save file. Right. Because, like, pretending I'm Spider-Man, he's a fun character to be. If I could have the option of any superpower, it would be to have Spider-Man's powers. And if it was only a single power, it would be web slinging. Because that looks... Okay, I'm gonna make this clear. I don't do bungee jumping or heights or roller coasters or anything like that. So I don't know how much I'd actually swing with my webs. But if I could produce webs to just grab things from a distance, right? Do stuff like that, that would be cool. And I'd probably try web swinging if I had the strength to actually hold myself like that. But yes, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is my favorite Spider-Man. The two films that he's been in as of recording this are my favorite Spider-Man movies. Far From Home is incredible to me. That film's amazing. I saw it twice in cinemas after its released, and the only other two films I've done that with have been Infinity War and Endgame. Admittedly, with Infinity War, I went to see it with two different groups of people. Endgame, the second time I went by myself to convince myself I liked that film, because I wasn't certain I did when I came out for cinema. And the reason for that is that everything in Endgame, everything that happens in that film, is great. I love everything that happens in it. Right? Watching Ant-Man freak out after coming back after 5 years, seeing Tony's daughter on the relationship those two have, although there's very little of it, it's great to see that, because we know where Tony was, and Tony was never going to be a father, right, at the start of Iron Man 1. That was never going to happen. It's insane that he has a child, and with Pepper Potts as well. It's incredible to see, and obviously, in the end, he gives up everything to save her, effectively. And obviously, the rest of the world too, but yeah. And obviously there's there's Fat Thor, who's a funny character, and it's an interesting place to see where that goes with him. That's what happens to Thor afterwards, right? Thor is a character who up until this point has never been beaten, and Thanos wins because Thor's too cocky. Right, so Thor gets depressed. Right, that makes sense. That's exactly where his character would go. And the Professor Hulk thing happens. That's kind of funny as well. But what Endgame missed was that 5-year time skip. Right? Thanos won, and then Endgame happens. And that's all we get to see. We don't get to see what happens in that time gap. And that's what Endgame missed. Endgame needed that time gap filled in. We needed to see what happened there. We needed to know. Because the most interesting thing about Infinity War, what made that film so good, was how it ended and what that meant for the rest of the MCU. And we don't get to see what it meant, because Endgame doesn't show us. Do you know what a film does show us? Far From Home. Far From Home lets us see, not as much as I'd like, but it lets us see how the blip, as they called it, has affected people. Right? And how and we don't really get to see how it affected people at the time it happened, but we know that nobody takes it seriously anymore. At least nobody in the school, because they play it off as a joke when it happens. Right? They show it to you by having a marching band fucking appear in the middle of a basketball game, right? Because that's what they were doing when the blip happened. And we hear people scream, so we know it was a terrible thing at the time. And we got to see some of that in Infinity War as well. Although, admittedly, mostly with the main characters. You don't get to see New York's reaction. Which is something I will admit, the Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man films do excellently. They do such a good job of showing you New York and who New York is as a character. People have said this before, I've heard it before, but they really do a good job of making New York a character in those films. And by doing that, it lets you see the effect that superheroes have on the world. Because ultimately, the reason I'm into superhero films, and probably a lot of people are as well, is because superheroes are cool. And it would be cool if they existed in our world. Right? And as much as everyone wants to be a superhero or have superpowers, I think for a lot of us, it would be enough for them to exist. Right? And it would be dangerous, obviously, because with superheroes and superpowers, you would get supervillains. That's just how if there are a certain amount of people who have powers beyond most other humans, right? Some of them are going to do bad shit with that. Shape-shifting is a cool ability, but it's basically something only useful for espionage and trans people. right? Like, there is no everyday use for shapeshifting other than a cool party trick, right? It's not realistically something that will help out with your life. Unlike some other superpowers, right? Super strength could be really useful if you're a construction worker, right? Um, or literally any job involving manual labor. Right, invisibility is another one where it's like, that's a cool power, but it doesn't really help that much for most people. Like, it'd be useful for your anxiety, I guess. You could just banish it away. And that's useful for people. Excuse me. Right. How long is this? This has been 50 minutes, okay. What was I talking about? Spider-Man! Spider-Man! Yes, Tom Holland Spider-Man. Tom Holland Spider-Man is great to watch. Right. And he makes fun videos. That's not right. Tom Holland plays a good Peter Parker and a good Spider-Man. Right. And I really enjoy watching him as Spider because he I think a good way to put it is that Tom Holland Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, this might be a hot take and people might get ragey about this, are the same Spider-Man. Okay, they're the same person, but in two very different societies time-wise. Right. Spider-Man, so Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because Spider-Man a bit younger than Tobey Maguire's, obviously. Like, I don't know if it's stated, but I think when Tom Holland becomes Spider-Man, he's probably 15, and then he's 16 in Civil War, I believe. Tobey Maguire, however, seems to become Spider-Man at around the age of 17, because he just finishes high school and then is going to college. Throughout the two films, throughout Spider-Man 1 and 2. I'm not sure if he's still in college by 3, he might have passed by then, I'm not entirely certain, because I have yet to watch it. I have seen it before, just to clarify, but not recently, and I don't remember it that well. And Tom Holland's Spider-Man is a teenage boy in 2016, right? That's how he acts. He acts exactly how we'd expect a nerd to act in this time. And I think Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, is a teenage boy from the early 2000s. Hell, from the mid-90s. That's how they were. But I don't know what that's like, personally. So I have no relation to that. I have a relation to Tom Holland's, because that's how I act in 2017, right? You see memes about how basically oh god, I can't even think how to put this in words. But it's basically Tom Holland acting as a Zoomer. Right, Tom Holland Spider-Man, Peter Parker acting as a Zoomer towards the other Avengers, and then just being completely lost about what's going on. Actually, I think the best example of this is to do with Into the Spider-Verse, where because all of the realities are very similar but only slightly different, they just have very slightly different meme cultures. So, like, instead of saying weird flex but okay, it's like cool beans but alright. It's just complete. Like, you hear people say these and they go, and all of them look at each other like, why have you said that and not this? It's dumb. What am I talking about? Spider-Man! Yes. What is my voice today? Anyway, Spider-Man happens. Oh. But no, I like Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Something I know people have pointed out towards Tom Holland's films is that nothing really goes wrong for him. Right? At least in Homecoming. I'd argue more goes wrong in Far From Home. But basically nothing really goes wrong for him in Homecoming. Not badly, not in the same way as they do in the Maguire films. And possibly in Amazing Spider-Man as well. But again, I haven't seen them recently and I don't really know what happens. But in the Tobey Maguire films, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man gets absolutely shat on constantly. Right? That's basically what Spider-Man 2 is about. Right? It's him being Spider-Man ruins Peter Parker's life. So he decides to not be Spider-Man for a bit and just be Peter Parker. And it makes Peter Parker's life so much better. But Peter Parker realizes that New York needs Spider-Man. And Peter Parker has a responsibility to give them Spider-Man. So he takes up the mantle again. No, even though he knows, it doesn't help Peter, right? It's, great power, great responsibility, etc. Again, this is something HiTop goes into a lot more detail. So again, I highly recommend watching those videos, but they are quite long, and this might be as well. Yeah. It's something. But I yeah, I don't know what to say about that, because the things go right mostly for Peter Parker. He doesn't really have this as a problem, but you have to bear in mind that we meet Peter Parker Spider-Man in Civil War. He has already been Spider-Man for a bit. He knows what that comes with, right? So maybe he's already gone through all of that. Maybe he's already been shat on. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe we're still yet to see it. And maybe it happens in Far From Home. After Tony's death, he feels like he has to fill in Tony's shoes. And he doesn't think he can. Which is why he gives oh god, I can't remember its name. He gives the glasses to Mysterio, and it's a mistake. He shouldn't have done that. Right. And he questions whether he should be the ones to fill in Tony's shoes. Right? And then Happy's like, don't fill in Tony's shoes. Make your own shoes. Right? And then proceeds to play it reminds me AC/DC over the top of it. And you get the amazing line, I love Led Zeppelin. Which I think, to some extent, on the one hand, it's off because you're like, don't be Iron Man. And then he plays music that throughout this series has been heavily associated with Iron Man. Right? So, But Peter doesn't recognize it to be AC/DC. He doesn't know it's AC/DC. And therefore, he doesn't have the association with that music to Iron Man. He doesn't know that's. I think I might have said Spider-Man earlier. I can't remember. I'm not going to check. Anyway, he doesn't have the association with AC/DC and Iron Man and Tony Stark. And that's clear because he doesn't know it's AC/DC. And it's meant to be a dumb joke, and I'm probably looking into more of this now than I ever have done before and ever should have done. But it shows you that Peter isn't trying to be like Iron Man, right? Despite the fact that maybe other people want him to be, right? He's being Spider-Man. He's being Peter Parker. Yeah. But what the best thing that Spider-Man films do in the MCU, Tom Holland's Spider-Man films, James Gunn's Spider-Man, not James Gunn. I've forgotten it. I've forgotten the director's name. That's really annoying. I'm gonna Google it again. Homecoming cast, maybe? Who's the director? John Watts. John Watts. That's the one. Anyway. John Watts' Spider-Man films in the MCU. John Watts doesn't get. He's never called the John Watts films, have they? That's weird. Oh well. Anyway. In those films, what they do a good job of showing is the impact that the MCU has on the common people, on just the everyday people of New York. Spider-Man Homecoming opens on cleanup crew. I'm not sure if it exactly opens, but it definitely close to opens. The cleanup crew cleaning up after the Battle of New York. And you get to see the impact that it has, and obviously, eventually that creates the main villain to be the Vulture. Right, and you have... Basically, it's Iron Man as a film, Tony Stark's thing in his main movies is basically fighting the demons that he's created, and you end up with in Homecoming, Spider-Man is now fighting one of the demons. I think Spider-Man even calls him a demon at some point. I'm not entirely certain about that. Don't quote me. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think that might happen. But Spider-Man is now fighting one of Tony's demons that Tony created, and Tony doesn't take responsibility for this, right? Because Tony doesn't know that's where the Vulture started. He doesn't know that's what's happening. Tony Stark is unaware of the effects that this has on people, right? Or at least had at the time, which is why he didn't notice then. And he still doesn't notice now, but he should have, given that the events of Civil War effectively happen because Tony realizes what he's done. Tony realizes the effect that his actions have taken on the general public. And that's why Civil War happens. So, that's fun. Yeah. So you have this weird thing where, neither Spider-Man or Tony Stark know that Stark created the Vulture, in theory. Created is a loose term, but Stark is, yeah. Because Stark manages the cleanup, which kicks Adrian Toomes out for doing the cleanup. Right, so that's how, an important thing with a lot of Spider-Man characters is the relationship between Spider-Man and the villain. Again, if you look at Raimi's films, there's always a relationship between them and between Peter and the villain. And what they do well in Homecoming is they give a link not only to Peter, but to Iron Man, the person at the time who's basically Peter's idol, right? Tony Stark is the guy who Peter looks up to. So we have that. And obviously, the link with Peter to Adrian is that Peter is dating Adrian's daughter, Michelle. And not Michelle. What's her name? Is it Lucy or something? I've genuinely completely forgotten. Liz. Christ. Liz Allen, apparently. So, yeah. Anyway, that's happening. So there's the link there, and you get the amazing scene in the car where you have, Peter already knows immediately the moment he sees Toomes who Toomes is. Right, when he knocks on the door and Toomes answers it, he basically goes, "Oh shit," and you can see that on his face. Right, and the tension between them is incredible. You could feel that watching that movie. And you have the amazing scene in the car where you have Toomes asking Peter questions, and Peter is basically kind of successfully dodging around them, and Liz accidentally throwing him under the bus. Right, completely unknowingly, right? And that's what happens. And eventually Toomes realizes that Peter is Spider-Man, right? So yeah, and you get the great scene where the moment he realizes this, the traffic lights go from red to green, and his face lights up, and that's perfect cinematography. And I'm sure you've heard about it before, but you might not notice it when you first watch it, and someone will point it out, and you'll go, ah, if you're remotely into film making at all, which I am, but it's not something I'll ever do. Yeah. So right, and that's where I wanted to go with this. And there's that is in tone that is very similar to the Thanksgiving dinner scene. Is it Thanksgiving? I think that's what they're doing. Scene in Spider-Man 1, where you have Peter, Harry, MJ, Aunt May, Norman Osborn eating dinner, right? And Norman, like, they almost walk in on Spider-Man just after he's returned because they weren't expecting him back yet, so they check his room. Norman notices the blood drip on the floor but doesn't know where it's from, and later sees that Peter has a cut on his arm, exactly where Spider-Man had a cut on his arm during his fight. And you get a similar sense of tension between them, but at this point in the film, the main difference, I think, between these two scenes, the car scene and Thanksgiving dinner, is that in the Thanksgiving scene, neither Peter or Norman knows the other one's identity. Neither of them know the other to be the person that they've been fighting with. Whereas, so, whilst Peter's trying to cover up the wound or whatever and say it's not a problem, he's not doing that to protect him from being Spider-Man. He's not trying to just get attention away from it. Which is what not Toby. Which is what Tom Holland does. Tom Holland's Peter Parker does. Is that he's trying to not make it clear that he's Spider-Man and make it clear that he doesn't know. At the very least, he doesn't want Adrian Toomes to know that he knows that he's the Vulture. Right? Like, so there's you don't get the same. I think there's more tension in the car scene. At the very least, you can tell that Peter is more tense in the car scene than in the Thanksgiving scene. And obviously in the Thanksgiving scene, you don't get that green light. Right? That doesn't happen. So yeah. So it's interesting to look at these two films and compare them because they're both obviously they are both Spider-Man films, but they are trying to do two very different things, I think. Right? Which is why it's I guess it's somewhat hard to compare them, is that they are trying to do different things with these characters. Despite them being, for the most part, the same character. As I said before, they're the same character, but they've grown up in a different time. Right? Which gives them different personalities. Because of course it would. Right? If I were to generate a complete clone of myself and send it 20 years to the past, it would grow up to have a different personality. It would do different things. It might, chances are, still probably be in computers in some fashion and maybe films as well, but I'd have seen different films, right? Like, there are some films I haven't seen which I know I should watch at some point. Like genuine movie classics, things like Jaws, Jurassic Park, Back to the Future. These are shouldn't be saying this if I put something in there, but I haven't seen those films. I know what happens in them roughly, and I know different moments and different scenes, and I can reference them. Like, Back to the Future is a film I'm pretty sure I've seen all the way. Like, every single thing in that film I've probably seen at some point. I just haven't sat down and watched it start to finish. Right? Right, I know enough about that film to talk about it. But I haven't actually watched the thing. But that's besides the point. Right. Point is that they're the same character, different time, different personality. And the events that happen to them happen at slightly different times in their lives. As mentioned earlier, Tony becomes Spider-Man a bit later into his life. Not much, but a bit. Like 2 years or so, I think. So yeah. And same film. Not the same film. Same characters, different things. So, but how long has this been going? This is 35 minutes long. Oh, amazing. This is just me rambling about shit. Anyway, right. Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man 1, 2002, Sam Raimi's film, is about introducing Spider-Man. Right. You have to introduce Spider-Man, and you have to tell everyone who he is. Right. Which is why it's the origin story. Right. Everyone needs to know who Spider-Man is, what he's doing, why he's there. And it does that well. It does that successfully, and it gives you that experience. And it made everyone, basically, know who Spider-Man was at that time. In 2002, everyone knew who Spider-Man was. Right, basically because of this film. If they didn't know him before, they now knew who he was. And 4 movies later, we didn't need that. Right, Spider-Man, and the job of Homecoming, isn't even to introduce Peter to the MCU. Right, because Civil War did that. Right? We get to know everything we need to know about who this Spider-Man is in comparison to the last one in Civil War. Right? It's not even Spider-Man's film. He's just there for it. Right? Because Tony has seen some videos of him online and needs his help. Because he thinks he can help. Right? I keep doing this. Homecoming's job is... What is Homecoming's job? What is it trying to do? I actually can't think about this. Most videos like this get scripted. Fuck that noise. It's exactly for this reason. Homecoming has a job to do. And I can't think what it is. Because it's not to introduce you to Peter Parker as a character. And it's not to introduce him to the MCU. Homecoming's job isn't to set up future films either. That's not what it does. So I think, if anything, Homecoming's a film about Spider-Man with the intention of using Spider-Man to show us what it's like to live in a world with superheroes. I think, personally. I don't know if that's his job. I don't know if that was what it was aiming to do. I don't know if that's what it should be trying to do. It definitely does that, right? You get to see the effects that, you get to see kids playing, I think it's Snog, Marry... I think they do Snog, Marry, Kill. I think, with some of the Avengers, right? You hear about kids doing this. Right? And that's what happens. Right? And people reference these guys, they talk to them. You get Flash bullying Peter for knowing Spider-Man, quote unquote. Which it's entertaining to watch. And he says, oh, could you get your buddy Thor to come here or whatever, something along those lines. I don't know if it's Thor he mentions, but it's something like that. And it's you get to see that in these films. And that's something I really like. I really want to know the effects that the Avengers existing, and superheroes in general existing in this world has on the actual world. Because if, like, I were to live in the MCU, I would be a random citizen. I wouldn't be someone with superpowers. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't have superpowers now. Why would I have them there? Right? And personally, if I were to have superpowers, I would see myself being Tom Holland's Peter Parker. Right? That's where I'd see myself to be in the MCU if I were there. As a hero, as one of the main characters, so to speak. But otherwise, I just want to know what it's like to live in that world. Because that world's so interesting to me. And it's certainly better than ours is right now. Right? At least everyone can agree, right, that if aliens come down and destroy the planet, at least everyone can agree that that's bad. But the real life problems are, what's the word? Divisive, I think. Polarizing in some extent. Like, things happen, and half the world thinks they're terrible, and the other half thinks they're great, and that's the problem, right? The problem isn't the thing itself, but the way people respond to it, and that doesn't happen in the MCU. We don't get to see that so much, right? We don't see anyone being angry at the superheroes for saving people, right? They cause massive amounts of collateral damage, right? This happens. That's why Civil War and the Sokovia Accords happen. It's because of this amount of damage that they cause. It's a significant part of Tony Stark's arc throughout the MCU, throughout the whole MCU, right? As we have released so far, is the effect that he has and his powers have had on the world and on individuals. And we don't get to see it happen. Right? The people who we see who hate the good guys become the villains, who then get killed. And in Spider-Man 1, right, in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 1, this is something we do get to see. We do get to see people not liking Spider-Man, because he's a masked vigilante. Kind of. Right? Joe Jonah Jameson is obviously the distinct example of this. Almost everyone around him likes Spider-Man, and he consistently imprinted its label, right? Consistently makes Spider-Man out to be a bad guy, right? In his paper, because it sells, right? And he doesn't think Spider-Man's a good guy. And the only time they show Jameson in that film possibly liking Spider-Man is when he's gone. Right? Spider-Man goes, frame rate increases, and he suddenly goes, like, maybe I had Spider-Man wrong. Maybe he was a hero. And at this point in the film, Spider-Man takes his suit from Jameson, and Jameson calls him out for it and calls him a thief, and immediately goes back as soon as Spider-Man actually turns up again. Right? So you can... And because you have this paper going out all the time, saying Spider-Man's not as good as he seems, etc., you do have some people thinking Spider-Man isn't a great guy. Right? And they show you the news interviews with people, and like, what do you think of Spider-Man? And some of them say they don't like him. Right? And by the start of the third film, everyone likes Spider-Man. Everyone loves it. Right? And this goes straight to Peter's head and causes Spider-Man to be a worse person. Right? So that growth between those things and getting to see how people react to them is it's 20 past 1. Oh god, why do I do this? It's interesting to see that, right? It's interesting to see. The only thing I want from the MCU, more than anything else, right, is to see how the world, our world, responds to the heroes. That's not where I was starting this. I just wanted to talk about Spider-Man, which I guess I've done, to be fair. It's where we are now. Right. But that's the most interesting thing about the MCU, is not that they've made 24, 25, I don't remember now. It's not that they've made the longest running film franchise since 2008. It's 12 years old, that franchise, at this point. It's 12 years, 24 films, at least, I'm pretty sure. Which means they've had 2 films a year come out. That's impressive, right? Like, Spider-Man 2 took 2 years to make. They've really pumped out 2 films every year since 2008? That's insane. What the hell, Marvel? What the hell? Wow. Christ. You can see why some of the more recent films seem a bit rushed. Things like Captain Marvel and Ant-Man and the Wasp. Which are fun films, they're alright, but you watch them and you leave them and you go, that could have been better. Except I did it with Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's a really weird one for me because I watched it and came out of it going, wow, that was really cool, that was awesome, I loved that, that was great. And then I watched some people talking about it, and then I thought about it and went, no, it wasn't great. That was just, it was another Marvel movie. That's what it was. But anyway, the thing you get with the MCU isn't the fact there's 24 movies. It's not the fact we get 2 movies every year from them. But rather, it's the fact that you have, over those 24 movies, or 25, however many years, they have built a consistent world that is growing. Right, you can see the effects of some films and some characters and how those affect others. And if you've seen all the films, you notice these effects. Right? And the films work fine if you haven't seen those things, for the most part. You lose a lot of the emotional weight if you haven't seen them. Like, imagine watching Endgame, having only seen Infinity War. Right? You will not feel the impact of any of the great moments. Right? It will not be satisfying to watch. It won't be satisfying to watch Cat pick up Thor's hammer if you haven't seen Age of Ultron. And more importantly, if you don't know about the scene in Age of Ultron, right? Because you might have seen that film once when it came out. Like, because as far as the Avengers films go, it's not the greatest. I mean, it is not the greatest Avengers film. The first one did a better job. In fact, it's probably, out of the 4 Avengers films that currently exist, I reckon most people would probably consider Age of Ultron to be the worst of the 4. I don't know if I would, personally, but Age of Ultron has an amazing scene in it, right? And it's the after party scene, right? Where you just get to watch the Avengers be people with each other, right? And they have a challenge, right? Thor sets a challenge to lift his hammer, and everyone gets a try. Everyone gets to go if they want to, and you get to see exactly how these people respond, and they respond exactly in the way you expect them to, right? Tony goes, there must be science to it. He says something about it must detect your fingerprints or something. I think the specific thing he says is that he who has Thor's fingerprints can lift it. Right, and he tries to lift it up. Look up Nando, I think it's Nando V Movies. Nando V Movies created a series called One Marvelous Scene, and basically anyone who wanted to could title a video with this and talk about one scene in the Marvel franchise just before Endgame came out. He started doing this, I think. And his was this scene, and I fully agree with him. It's despite Age of Ultron's flaws, it's one of the best films in the entire franchise. So yes, Iron Man tries to lift it with tech. He tries to use his suit and the thrusters to do it, and that doesn't work. And he tries to get Rhodey to help as well. Again, it doesn't actually do anything. And Bruce tries it and pretends to Hulk out and doesn't. And it's like he knows he can't lift that. Hulk's tried to lift the hammer before. We've seen it, but whatever. Bruce does it because I think if anything, he feels pressured to try. Natasha refuses to try. She doesn't need the question answered, I believe, for her words. Which isn't... It's not out of character. I don't think it's maybe not necessarily what you'd expect her to do, like the others. But yeah. I think Hawkeye gives it a go, if I remember correctly. I don't think he tries for very long, is the thing. Like, he sort of tugs at it and goes, no, that doesn't budge, and gives up. I'm pretty sure. But then you see Cap do it. You get to watch Steve Rogers, that's his name. Why did I blank on that? It's probably because it's 1:30 in the morning. You get to see Steve Rogers try and lift the hammer, and it moves slightly. And you watch Thor's face drop. And right. And it just moves slightly and it doesn't move anymore. And basically, up until Endgame came out, the fan theory was that from that moment, Captain America has been considered worthy enough by Odin to lift the hammer. Right. If he wanted. But Cap knows that if he does this, right, if he does lift, Cap realizes it moves, goes, oh crap, and leaves it there. Because he doesn't want to show up Thor. Right? Because he's an honest guy. And if he shows up Thor in front of all of these people, it's gonna really fuck Thor up. Right? As we kind of see later, post-Endgame, when he's depressed. Because somebody beat it. Somebody was better than him. Right? And he hasn't done that before. That hasn't happened. We know this because he says so in Infinity War. Right? Like, I think 1,500 years people have tried to fight me, and 500 people have come at me, and each time they do, I've always won. Right? And Thanos ends up winning. And it gets it. So if Cap had showed him up, that would have been bad, and Cap knew this, so he didn't. So the fan theory was that Cap always knew how to move it. Right? Which is proven to us in Endgame when he lifts the hammer, and that's why that moment's so satisfying. But if you hadn't seen that moment in Age of Ultron, and if you didn't know the effects that would have had on Thor, and you just don't know these things because you hadn't seen it, that moment wouldn't have such an impact. Right? And if you hadn't seen the Thor movies, you wouldn't know that other people couldn't lift the hammer. Right? I assume it must have happened at some point in one of the films. In either Infinity War or Endgame. Does Thanos try to lift it? I felt like he must do at some point. But I can't... I can picture it in my head, but I don't know if that's a memory or that's something I'm generating. This is getting very long. I should probably cut this off. Let's start with this. I was talking about Spider-Man. I haven't had it that far, but yeah. It's interesting to see how different people like different things different amounts. I think. Because even people who like all of these films, right, I love the entirety of the MCU. There is not I wouldn't say that any of those films in there are bad films. And I think anyone who does is wrong. Some of the films are mediocre, and you might claim them to be boring, and I think that's fair enough. You may not enjoy Thor: The Dark World, and you may not enjoy The Incredible Hulk. Those are normally the two which come up into those categories. But they aren't bad movies. They're just not great MCU movies, and The Incredible Hulk isn't even Marvel Studios, right? Like, we don't know. And The Incredible Hulk's like, if you want to rewatch the entirety of the MCU, right, but want to save just a little bit of time, you can probably skip The Incredible Hulk, right? I don't think you should. If you're trying to watch the whole thing, you should watch the whole thing. But nothing that important happens there that impacts anything else, right? If you know who the Hulk is, which again, people did, right, before Avengers, right? People did know who the Hulk was. They just beeped, but something just beeped. That's not terrifying at all. Huh. Something beeped in my room. Am I in Audacity? I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, you could probably skip Hulk if you wanted. And I don't think you should, but yeah, whatever. It's made by Universal, so it's slightly different. It's kind of a black sheep of the whole MCU. And you can tell, really. Oh, God, it's like, it's 1 in the morning. I should go to sleep. I should end this here. This has been a rant about the MCU. Nothing coherent, nothing scripted. I've literally just spoken into the mic for an hour, and frankly, my throat's starting. Bleh. My throat is starting to hurt. Go watch HiTop's analysis on Spider-Man trilogy. Go to the channels which I said earlier. They do other fun stuff, which is much better quality than this. This is literally just an audio thing. I'm gonna stick on YouTube with probably a black screen. And no music. That's Discord. Cool, thanks. So, yeah. I have nothing else to say here, I don't think. So, I'm gonna end this. There may be more of these. They'll probably be about completely random topics, different things. Hell, I might just talk into a mic for 10 minutes about fuck all and see where my brain takes me. I don't know. I'm surprised I stayed on the topic of MCU here, to be honest. At the very least. But yeah. Tom Holland Spider-Man is better because I relate to him more personally. And that's about it. I think. People like things. You should let people like things. Depending on what the thing is, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. You can handle yourself. I'm gonna end this here. Goodbye.